Hi guys. Tonight we begin a journey that slips beneath the surface of time, a slow drift down the ancient rivers of memory, through mist-covered mountain paths, and into the hushed corners of a forgotten world. This is the story of feudal Japan and why, even in its quiet beauty, it would consume you, mind, body and spirit, before a single day had passed. Tonight we follow not warriors or kings, but you the stranger, the outsider, dropped like a stone into a world that does not forgive, a place where one misstep might cost you your name, your breath, your life. Let's walk together now. Not too fast. Let the night unfold. The rooster doesn't crow. Instead, it's the thump of wooden sandals on packed earth that stirs you, sharp and unfamiliar. It takes a moment for your mind to catch up with your body. You're not in your own bed. There is no mattress beneath you, no soft pillow, no glow of streetlights beyond drawn curtains, just the smell of straw and wood smoke. The tatami mat beneath you is firm, scratchy. The room around you dim, walls made not of plaster or stone, but of paper screens. You remember, you're here, somehow. Feudal Japan. The light is dim, just enough to make out the silhouette of a young boy kneeling beside a small iron kettle, coaxing flame from smouldering coals. His hands are swift, practiced. The water will be ready soon. Outside the sliding shoji doors, another set of footsteps, slow and deliberate, as the village begins to stir. You rise slowly, instinct telling you to speak, but you don't know the language, not really. A few scattered words, phrases you've heard in movies, read in books. But here those are hollow, foreign. This world doesn't wait for you to understand it. It continues. The boy glances at you, then away. No greeting. He does not speak unless spoken to. He is likely the son of the family who agreed to take you in, though you don't remember meeting them last night. You were too disoriented, too exhausted. You slept in your clothes. That's a problem. Your host, a farmer named Daikichi, appears at the door. He is wiry and strong, despite the soft sag of age in his shoulders. His face is sun-darkened, lined by years in the field, and though he offers no smile, there is a certain kindness in his quiet gaze. He gestures, a sharp flick of the wrist, and you understand. Follow. Outside, the air is cool, touched with moisture. The early morning fog curls between the narrow paths of the village, wrapping around crooked rooftops and stone lanterns. Smoke rises slowly from cooking fires. Children run silently to their chores. Everyone moves with purpose. No one lingers. You stumble once, your foot catching a root near the edge of the path. No one helps you. No one laughs either. But the silence that follows your mistake is louder than mockery. Daikichi leads you down a trail flanked by fields, wet, muddy rectangles stitched into the hills. You recognize the rice paddies, even if you've never seen them this way before. Women in wide straw hats bend knee-deep in water, adjusting seedlings with patient, methodical precision. Men nearby check irrigation channels, clear debris with rakes and woven nets. It's back-breaking work. But more than that, it's constant. You feel it immediately. The heaviness in the air, not of humidity, but of pressure. Here, every breath feels borrowed, every movement accounted for. Daikichi hands you a woven basket and points to a cart partially unloaded with harvested bundles of rice stalks. You don't need to be told what to do. The first bundle is heavier than it looks. Your fingers slip on the rough twine, and as you turn, your foot plunges ankle-deep into the mud. Your balance shifts, the bundle slides forward, and you catch yourself only barely before landing face first in the paddy. Someone snickers. You glance up. A girl, maybe 16, eyes sharp as polished obsidian. She says nothing, but the curve of her mouth tells you everything. You are not ready for this place. You grit your teeth and try again. One step, another. The mud pulls at you like it resents your intrusion, and perhaps it does. Hours pass this way. The sun lifts through the mist and settles into a steady burn overhead. Your arms ache. Your spine screams. The soaked hem of your pants chafes with every motion. Blisters rise on your palms. And still, you keep going, not out of honor or pride, but because there's no alternative. There are no breaks, no water bottles, no shade. When you finally stop, it's because Daikichi taps you on the shoulder and gestures toward a shaded grove at the edge of the field. There, on smooth stones, the workers squat in quiet clusters, eating from wrapped bundles of rice and pickled vegetables. You sit awkwardly, your legs cramping, your breath shallow. Your hands tremble as you unwrap the cloth bundle Daikichi's wife handed you earlier. Cold rice, one pickled plum, a sliver of dried fish. It's simple, and yet it feels like a feast. You eat slowly. No one talks much, just the rustling of bamboo leaves and the distant call of birds. After the meal, a brief pause. Not to rest. Rest is a dangerous luxury, but to reflect. One of the older men, face like carved bark, stands and pours water from a small lacquered cup onto the earth. He mutters something in an old dialect you can't pass. A blessing? A prayer? You don't know, but you bow your head anyway. It feels right. By evening, the village is bathed in gold. The heat breaks. A breeze moves through the trees. Children laugh now, chasing fireflies near the stream. Lanterns are lit one by one, casting soft pools of light on stone steps and wooden walls. You sit with Daikichi's family beneath the eaves of his home, sharing silence and tea. They accept you. Perhaps not as one of their own, not yet. But you are here. And for now, that is enough. The boy from this morning dozes against the doorframe, and Daikichi's wife hums an old song, barely above a whisper. You close your eyes and listen. It's a lullaby. You don't understand the words, but you understand the feeling. It's the song of a world that existed before you and will endure long after. A world where survival means submission. A world where the price of belonging is forgetting who you were. You lean back, exhausted, aching, and somehow at peace. Night in feudal Japan is slow, deliberate, a closing of the eyes, a release of control. Tomorrow will come too soon, and it will ask more of you than you know how to give. But for now, in this moment, you breathe. And the world breathes with you. Darkness wraps the village like a heavy cloak. The chirping of crickets, so constant, so soft, seems to form a rhythm, like a breath, slow and deep, pulled from the lungs of the earth itself. Somewhere nearby, a bamboo fountain tips with a dull knock and resets and tips again. The scent of pine and soot, of something faintly sweet, drifts through the thin walls. You lie awake. The day behind you echoes in your bones. It's strange how silence here doesn't feel empty. Every moment is filled with something, layers of presence, even in the stillness. Perhaps it's because you are not truly alone. The house is quiet, yes, but not dead. You hear soft movements, a cough behind the screen, the creak of an old joint from Daikichi's wife as she rises to stir the fire, the rustle of cloth as the boy shifts in his sleep. Life continues. Even in rest, there is rhythm. And yet, your mind drifts. You miss the hum of machines, the dull glow of your phone screen, the ease of hot water. Your body misses the comforts, but your spirit feels something else, something deeper, something older. Then, just before sleep takes you, you hear it, a cry, muffled but sharp, a woman's voice carrying pain, then silence again. You freeze, unsure whether you imagined it, but no one else stirs. The family around you sleeps on as though nothing happened. The next morning, dawn breaks earlier than your body would like. A rooster this time, clear and sharp. You blink against the grey light filtering through paper walls, and your muscles remind you of yesterday's labour. They ache, not a gentle ache, but one that wraps your spine, your shoulders, your hands. Pain that is not just physical, but ancestral. You step out into the cold air. There is movement already. Smoke curls upward from more than one chimney. A group of boys walks toward the river, carrying bundles of laundry. A few women gather near the well. Everyone is up because time here doesn't belong to individuals. It belongs to the village, to the seasons, to the order passed down by those who shaped this land. Daikichi meets you near the gate, his expression unreadable. He doesn't greet you with words, just a subtle tilt of his head. Follow. Today the fields are not your destination. Instead you head toward the forest. It's quieter here, though not silent. The underbrush rustles with birds and insects. The path narrows, lined with moss-covered stones and gnarled roots. Occasionally carved idols stand silently along the trail, small, weather-worn guardians with kind faces and cracked eyes. You pass a man kneeling before one of them. His back is bare, covered in dark tattoos, swirls and cranes, perhaps inked long ago when he was someone else. He whispers something you can't understand and presses his forehead to the ground. When he notices you, he does not nod or smile. He just watches. Eventually, the forest opens into a clearing. A shrine stands there, humble and grey with age, its wood weathered and clean. There's an air of solemnity, of something sacred but quiet, like a breath held for centuries. Beside the shrine, a woman kneels, sweeping the ground with slow, deliberate strokes. She wears white. Her face is lined but serene. She doesn't look at you. Daikichi bows low. You do the same. This is not for you to question. Not now. He speaks softly to her, and she replies in a voice like paper rustling in wind. Then she rises and disappears into the shrine. Daikichi remains kneeling. He motions for you to do the same. You wait. Time stretches, birds flutter above. Somewhere distant, the sound of water, perhaps a hidden stream flowing under stones. You breathe in the scent of cedar and incense and feel your heartbeat slow. Then the woman returns. She holds a bundle wrapped in indigo cloth. You can't see what's inside, but Daikichi accepts it with both hands and bows again, deeply. He turns to you, nods once. It is time to go. No one speaks on the way back. You're not sure what just happened, but the weight of it lingers, as though the shrine whispered something you couldn't quite hear. Or maybe it's the forest itself, so ancient, so vast it seems to swallow your thoughts. When you return to the village, the mood is different, quieter, not somber exactly, but subdued. Daikichi places the bundle inside the home's small kamidana, the family's household shrine. He lights a stick of incense, and the thin smoke curls into the still air. He closes his eyes, murmurs something. You bow, not because you know what you're doing, but because it feels right. Later that day you learn. The cry you heard in the night, it came from the house at the edge of the village. A young mother. Her baby, born too early, had not survived. No one speaks of it, not directly, but the shrine visit, the quiet, the prayer, the bundle, it all makes sense now. You begin to understand that grief here wears a different face. It isn't loud, it doesn't beg to be seen. It is absorbed, folded into the rhythm of life, carried like a stone in the sleeve. That evening the village gathers in silence. A fire is lit near the centre path, small and respectful. Offerings are placed nearby, rice, incense, and small tokens. The villagers bow. Some close their eyes, others hum softly. No one cries. You see the young mother standing near the shadows, her face unreadable. An older woman stands behind her, one hand resting on her shoulder. You feel something stir in your chest, a heaviness, a quiet ache, because this too is part of life here. Suffering does not separate you from others, it binds you to them. And this world, this harsh, unforgiving, beautiful world, offers no refuge except in that shared burden. Later, as the fire dies down, Daikichi's wife hands you a small rice cake, a gesture of kindness, of welcome. You accept it, holding it carefully. It is warm, soft, like life here, fleeting, fragile, and more precious than you ever understood. The stars begin to rise, and the weight of this place settles a little deeper in your bones. Night brings with it a deeper silence. You lie awake again, but not from discomfort. There's something else now, an unease. Not fear, not exactly. Just the strange awareness of having witnessed something sacred, something not meant for outsiders. And you are still, unmistakably, an outsider. The rice cake sits in your belly like a stone, not because it was heavy, but because it was given. A gesture that in this world carries a weight words never could. You held it like a relic, chewed it slowly, grateful. Even now the taste lingers, slightly sweet, slightly sad. The wind rustles the bamboo grove beyond the house. Leaves tap gently against the eaves. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You wonder if the woman at the edge of the village sleeps, if her dreams are filled with the sound of her child's voice, though she never got to hear it. At dawn you rise again. You expect to be sent back to the fields, to the cold, sucking mud, the burn in your spine. But today is different. There is movement in the village that wasn't there before. Men are preparing tools, not for farming, but for travel. Wagons are being loaded, sacks of grain, jars of oil, stacked bundles of straw and cloth. There's an energy in the air, anticipation. Daikichi nods at you and gestures to follow. You help tie down bundles, your fingers clumsy with unfamiliar knots. Another man corrects you without a word, his hands deft and fast. You watch, then copy. Better this time. Still not good enough. But no one stops you. They simply adjust your work and move on. You are going to market. It's not in your village, too small, too self-sustaining. Once every few weeks, the headman selects a handful to travel to the nearest town, an exchange of rice, salt, dried fish, hand-woven goods. The journey is long, half a day's walk through forests and hills, there and back in one breath, if luck holds. You are given a bundle to carry. Not too heavy, but awkward. And you're told, wordlessly through gestures and the occasional stern grunt, that you must not let it touch the ground. The road begins beneath a red torii gate, just beyond the village shrine. The pillars are chipped and faded, but still proud. You bow as you pass under it, following the others. The path winds upward into the wooded hills. At first there is chatter among the others, quiet, respectful, about the weather, the roads, who may be at the market this time. But as the climb grows steeper, words fade. The forest becomes the louder voice. You begin to sweat. The bundle rubs your shoulder raw. Your feet slip once and you catch yourself against a tree. One of the older men glares at you. You bow quickly, apologetic. You are learning, slowly. Midway through the journey, the path narrows again, this time along a steep ridge. Below, a river twists like a silver ribbon, far too far to survive a fall. Here the world feels older, the trees thicker, the air stiller. The villagers walk with bowed heads, faster now, like they're eager to be past this stretch. You ask no questions, but you feel it too. Something lives here, not a person. Something else. A small shrine, half buried in moss, rests at a bend in the path. It leans as though exhausted. A fox statue guards its front, nose chipped, eyes blank. One of the men places a coin at its feet. Another tosses a pinch of rice. Superstition? Maybe, but it feels more like caution. Respect, as though the very trees are listening. You reach the town by midday. It is unlike the village in every way, louder, more colourful, more alive. The main road is crowded with stalls and carts, voices raised in barter, the clatter of wooden wheels on stones. Smells overwhelm your senses, grilled fish, sweet dumplings, freshly ground herbs. Children weave through legs, dogs bark, monks chant. And everywhere, samurai. Their armour gleams in the sun. Some wear it proudly, swords at their hips, walking like wolves among lambs. Others are more discreet, dressed simply, but with a sharpness in their gaze that sets them apart. You are warned not to stare. You don't need the warning. The villagers set up near the edge of the market, a patch of ground, modest. Familiar buyers come. Silent bows exchanged. Trades made quickly, efficiently. Rice for cloth, oil for dried persimmons. Copper coins are counted on flat stones. No haggling. No waste. You're told to stay with the goods. Watch them. Don't speak. You do. But your eyes wander. So much to see. A man with painted scrolls of demons and dragons. A blind musician playing the shamisen, his voice soft as river mist. A woman with lacquered combs and inked sleeves, watching the crowd with something between boredom and amusement. Then you see her, near a tea stall, dressed simply but unmistakable. Her posture perfect, her face painted white, lips like a falling leaf. Not quite a geisha, not here, not in a town like this, but trained, perhaps, or practicing. She pours tea for a group of travellers. They laugh. She smiles, but her eyes find you and linger, just for a second. You look away, heart racing, ashamed of your stare, but that moment clings to you, a touch of beauty as brief as sunlight on a blade. Later, as you pack to leave, Daikichi speaks your name for the first time. Softly, measured. He nods just once, approval, slight but real. On the way home, the forest seems less heavy. The river still glitters far below. The fox shrine passes again, and this time you stop. You have no coin, but you place a pebble, smooth and white, beside the fox's paw. A small offering, a thank you perhaps for letting you pass safely. By the time you reach the village, the sun is low and the world glows. Your shoulders burn, your feet are blistered, but you are still standing. And that here means everything. Evening settles gently like ash after a fire. The sun has vanished behind the hills, leaving behind a smouldering sky, deep orange fading into lavender. The light seems to linger longer here, caught in the silhouettes of sloping roofs and swaying trees. You feel the ache in your legs, your spine, the raw strip of skin where the shoulder strap of your burden dug too deep. But you also feel something else now, a quiet pride. The village is quieter than usual when you return. The women are lighting lanterns earlier, casting soft amber glows along the walkways. There's a tension in the air, not sharp but noticeable, like the scent of rain before it falls. Daikichi's wife meets the group at the entrance path. She exchanges few words with her husband, her voice low and even. Then she looks at you, her eyes lingering just long enough to say, "Something is happening." And it is. The headman has called a gathering. It isn't often, not here. Life usually flows with such rhythm that it rarely requires interruption. But now the villagers are already converging in the central courtyard, quietly, respectfully. No raised voices, no urgency, just presence. As though each of them knows without needing to be told. You follow Daikichi's family, keeping a respectful distance. A circle forms under the old pine tree, broad-branched and bent with time. At its base sits the headman, his knees folded beneath his dark robe, hands resting on an old walking stick carved with cranes. His face is shadowed in the lantern light. Around him, the elders, men and women alike, each older than the seasons, it seems. Then the reason emerges. A boy, barefoot, torn clothing, a face streaked with dust and fear. He's not from this village. A murmur moves through the crowd, not of fear, but of surprise. Strangers don't appear here often, and when they do, it's never without meaning. The boy kneels, unprompted, before the headman. His body trembles. He presses his forehead to the ground, a gesture of deep submission. You can see his shoulders quivering. No one moves. Then the headman speaks. His voice is a whisper of wind through leaves, low, old, but firm. You cannot understand every word. His dialect is thick, ancient, but you gather enough. The boy is a messenger, sent from a neighbouring village half a day to the east. There's been a theft, not of food or tools or cattle, but of a sword. Not just any sword, a katana belonging to a retired samurai, one still revered, still feared, a man who once served under a daimyo whose name you've heard muttered by firelight. The sword vanished 2 nights ago. No one saw who took it. But there are whispers. The thief may have fled into the woods, may have passed through this very village. That's why the boy is here, to warn, to plead, to prepare. Because the samurai is not patient, he has sent word. The blade must be returned, or someone will answer for its loss, and his men will come soon. The weight of the news falls like a stone into still water. No panic, but every face changes. The possibility of violence, even distant, casts a long shadow. You notice Daikichi clench his jaw. He does not speak. The headman asks a question, quiet, direct. Did anyone see anything? Anyone? Silence. Not even the wind stirs. But then a voice, cracked, unsure. An old woman near the edge of the gathering, face soft with age, speaks. She says she heard footsteps near the stream 2 nights ago. Unfamiliar, soft but hurried. She did not look. She did not go out. She was afraid. The stream is at the village's back, closest to the woods. The headman nods. Another voice follows. A boy this time. He says he saw someone near the shrine in the dark. Just a flash of movement. Thought it was a fox spirit. Ran home and said nothing. The pieces begin to settle. Daikichi glances at you. Not with suspicion, but with caution. You are, after all, a stranger too. Still new. Still unknown. You look down. Not because you're guilty, but because you understand. In this world, unfamiliarity itself is danger. The meeting ends not with a decision, but with a promise. The village will search in the morning, quietly, thoroughly, before the samurai's men arrive, and if they find the sword or the one who took it, they will act, not out of justice, but out of survival. That night, the air is sharp with cold. You lie beneath your blanket, but sleep evades you. The forest outside feels closer now, as if watching. You think of the boy, dust-covered, alone, delivering a warning he was too small to carry. You think of the missing blade, of the eyes that watch the shrine, of the old fox statue, leaning, silent, listening. And then, quietly, the thought creeps in. What if the thief is still here, hiding, waiting? Or worse, what if he's one of them, one of the villagers? A face you've passed, a voice you've heard, a hand that offered rice or fire or silence. The wind shifts outside. You pull the blanket higher, listening. Tomorrow will bring answers. But tonight, the questions keep breathing. The village wakes before the sky does. Darkness still clings to the rooftops like a second layer of thatch. The frost is thicker today, painting the earth in fine crystals that crunch beneath careful feet. A low mist rolls between the homes and fields, curling around the fire pits like it remembers every corner of the land. It is not yet morning, but movement stirs. The delegation prepares. 3 men. One from Daikichi's family line, the others from elder households. They are dressed in formal robes, simple, dark, worn. They carry a lacquered box wrapped in white cloth, tied tight with precise knots. Inside, rice polished until it glows like pearls, 2 flasks of aged sake, and the fragment of the scabbard wrapped in a thin strip of paper, the characters inked with care. You can't read them, but you know they say, "We are not your enemy." Daikichi doesn't go. He watches, arms folded, as the 3 men bow to the headman and begin their journey east, disappearing into the curtain of mist that swallows the path. He turns to you then, and gestures. Today, the stream again. You nod. But this time, there is something new in the way you move. Less hesitation, more rhythm. The tools are familiar now. Your fingers know how to tie the woven cord around your waist. Your steps trace the old stone path without slipping. Daikichi hands you a basket, a small one, for foraging. The frost is already melting as you move through the outer fields. Here, at the edge of the tree line, the world feels younger, still holding on to the memory of wildness. Daikichi doesn't speak much, but you begin to understand him without needing words. When he slows, you slow. When he stops, you wait. When he crouches, you follow. You collect mushrooms near rotting logs, small, grey, delicate. He nods when you find the right ones, shakes his head when you don't. You learn the trick of it, the faint sheen on the caps, the way the stems break with a clean snap. Beneath the cedar trees, you gather needles. Beside a narrow trickle of stream, you dig carefully for wild burdock root. The air smells of wet earth and pine sap. Then, further along the trail, you find something unexpected. A shrine. Not large, not grand, just a squat wooden structure, half buried beneath ivy and moss. One of its pillars has fallen, and the small roof leans forward like an old man, but the offering box remains intact. A few coins inside, a bundle of wilted flowers, 2 small stones neatly placed side by side. Daikichi bows deeply. You do the same. Then you notice the marks along the ground near the shrine's back ain't faint indentations. Not footsteps, not clearly, but something was here. Recently. The earth is disturbed, the moss broken. Daikichi stares at the ground for a long moment. Then he kneels, brushes away a patch of dead leaves and reveals a shallow hollow. Inside, just a piece of cloth, torn, stained. He lifts it slowly, turning it in the light. There along the edge is a single-stitched character, black on red. A family crest, you don't know which one. But Daikichi does. His face tightens, he folds the cloth with care and tucks it inside his robe. The silence that follows feels sharper than before. You return before dusk. The village feels tense, not frantic, but stretched. Children are kept indoors. Fires are lit earlier. The old men sharpen tools they haven't touched in years. Even the dogs sense it, ears up, bodies low to the ground. News arrives just after sundown. The delegation reached the neighbouring village safely. The offerings were accepted, the message received. But the samurai's men are already on the road. They will arrive by morning. No one speaks of what might happen. Instead, preparations begin. Quiet, orderly. You're given a task, one that surprises you. Firewood. Not to collect it, but to stack it. Near the centre of the village, beside the headman's house. You realise slowly that it's not for warmth. It's a signal, a show of readiness. If a message must be sent in smoke or flame, it will be sent from there. You work by lantern light. The logs are rough, heavy and cold against your palms. As you stack them, you notice others watching you. Not with suspicion this time, but with something closer to scrutiny, as if they're trying to decide what kind of man you are, or might become. Daikichi brings you water, then steps beside you to help. Together in silence, the pile grows. When it is done, you bow. He doesn't return it, just places a hand on your shoulder. For the first time, he speaks your name. It sounds different here, softer, more real. That night, as the village sleeps, or pretends to, Daikichi sharpens his farming knife again. The boy stares into the fire. Daikichi's wife mends the hem of an old kimono, though her hands move slower than usual. Her thread breaks twice. You sit quietly, watching the flame, thinking of the red cloth, the scabbard fragment, the figure in the woods, and the sword, lost, hidden, maybe broken. The wind outside shifts, carries with it the scent of horses, still far, but moving closer. By dawn, everything will change, and somewhere in the dark, the blade still waits. The morning arrives without sunlight. A heavy veil of cloud hangs low across the sky, diffusing the light into a dim grey wash that makes everything look as though it's been wrapped in old paper. The air is damp, but not from rain. It's the kind of damp that clings to your skin, seeps into your sleeves, settles behind your eyes. And then, before any rooster crows, before the village stirs beyond its thin-walled houses, they arrive, not with fanfare, not with the crash of drums or the snort of war horses, but with precision. 6 men, dressed in layers of lacquered armour, silent and severe. Their colours are not vibrant, mostly muted browns and steel grey, with faint accents of faded crimson. Their blades are sheathed but ever present. Each step they take seems measured, as though choreographed long ago and only now playing out. The leader is easy to spot. Not for his height or his bearing, though both command attention, but for the way the others glance at him when he doesn't speak. A nod from him is weightier than words. His face is unshaven. His top knot is loose. He looks tired, but not weak. Tired in the way an old tree looks tired, scarred but deeply rooted. You wonder how many villages like yours he has walked into, how many fires he has watched burn, how many names he remembers. The headman greets him first, a long, slow bow. Every elder follows suit. You do as well. The samurai does not return the gesture. Instead, he removes a scroll from a lacquered tube, unfurls it with a snap. His voice is deep, rough like bark. He reads aloud. The words are formal, distant, ceremonial, but the meaning is simple. The sword has not been returned, and time has run out. The villagers remain still. No arguments, no pleading, only the wind moving through the courtyard. Then, quietly, the headman steps forward. He lifts the cloth-wrapped box, places it gently at the samurai's feet, the scroll fragment, the offering, the message of regret. The samurai does not touch it. Instead, he asks a question, not with accusation, but with finality. Did you harbour the thief? The headman bows again. We do not know. A pause, then the samurai gestures to his men. Two of them step forward, begin walking house to house, searching, not ransacking, just looking. Efficient. Respectful in the way a butcher is respectful. Precise, practiced, devoid of excess. When they reach Daikichi's house, your chest tightens. One of the men glances inside. Sees the boy still half asleep. The woman kneeling by the fire. You, seated beside Daikichi, who hasn't moved. The samurai's man stares at you for a beat too long, then nods and moves on. They find nothing. Not in the storehouses, not beneath the floorboards, not behind the shrine or at the edges of the fields. But then, a call, sharp, echoing from the stream. You and Daikichi are already moving before you know it. When you arrive, 3 of the armoured men are standing at the bank. One is holding something, long, wrapped in canvas, heavy. The samurai stands beside them, arms crossed, his face unreadable. The cloth is unwrapped, a sword sheathed, but unmistakable. The hilt is wrapped in black ray skin. The guard is simple, worn smooth with time. But the symbol etched into the end of the pommel, the crest, is still visible. Daikichi exhales slowly. It is the missing blade. The samurai kneels, not reverently, but with a familiarity that tells you everything. He takes the sword into his hands and rests it across his thighs. Then, without ceremony, he draws it. The blade whispers from the sheath like breath over glass. It is beautiful, untouched by rust, still sharp, still deadly. He examines it, then nods. There is a silence that follows, and you realize everyone is waiting for what happens next. Because finding the sword was not the end, it was the beginning of judgment. The samurai's eyes scan the gathered faces, and then he speaks your name, yours. Clear, unmistakable. Your legs feel heavy, your breath catches. You step forward. He looks at you with no expression, just eyes like old river stones. You found the trail, he says. Not a question, you nod. Yes, you manage. He tilts his head. And did you see who placed it there? You shake your head slowly. No, only the fire. He studies you for a long time, then asks one more question. Why did you not take it for yourself? The villagers shift at this, not visibly, but inwardly. You feel it. The samurai watches your silence, your stillness. You don't answer, not with words, but after a moment you bow, not out of fear, but out of recognition. He nods once, and that is enough. He sheathes the blade, rises. Then, in a voice quieter than before, he says, "The thief was careless, he has shamed his name." Another pause. Then, "But your village is not guilty." No one breathes. Then the headman bows again, so deep, so long you feel his back tremble, and the samurai turns, walks away, his men follow, and just like that they are gone. The mist begins to rise again, and in its wake the village exhales. But something has shifted, not in fear, not in loss, but in the weight of knowing how close the blade had come. The village does not celebrate, not openly. There are no cheers, no sake shared in the open, no laughter to fill the silence left behind. The men and women return to their homes with quiet steps, eyes lowered not in shame, but in exhaustion. Even those who said nothing, who never stood close enough to see the blade, carry it with them now, the weight of proximity to danger. You return to Daikichi's house with your thoughts still knotted. The fire is low. The boy is asleep again, curled like a pup beside the embers. Daikichi's wife offers you a bowl of rice, a pickled plum tucked carefully inside. You bow as you receive it. The heat warms your fingers, but you don't eat. Not yet. Daikichi says nothing. He sits beside the doorway, staring out through the thin veil of smoke rising from the hearth. His knife is untouched. His hands rest on his knees, fingers gently twitching in thought. You understand that something in him has shifted, though you cannot name it. Outside, the sky remains overcast. No sun breaks through. Only a cold, pale light, spreading itself thin over the thatched rooftops and frost-dusted fields. A faint breeze rises, and for a moment you can almost hear the forest breathing. Later, the headman calls for you. You walk to his home alone. The door is slid open before you knock. Inside, the elder sits with his back straight, his robe folded like still water. He gestures for you to sit. He speaks slowly, more slowly than usual. He tells you that a message was received from the neighboring village. The thief, identified by name, was once a servant to the samurai, dismissed long ago for a dishonor too grave to speak aloud. He had passed through here. They were certain of it now. Likely camped near the grove, possibly hoped to find a new home, or to barter the sword to a wandering mercenary. You say nothing. He watches you, his gaze unreadable. You did not find him, he says, but you did not need to. You understand. The sword was all they truly wanted. The man behind its theft, he was already lost. The headman continues. He speaks of trust, of vigilance, of how, even in times of peace, a village must always be ready to hold its breath. Then his eyes narrow, and he says your name again, but this time with purpose. You are not one of us, he says, but you did not run. He falls silent after that, and then, with a nod, dismisses you. You leave the house more aware of your footsteps than ever before. In the days that follow, the rhythm of village life resumes, but it has changed key. The fields are quieter, the women sing less at the well. The children play, but their laughter seems to glance nervously over its own shoulder. Even the dogs, so eager once to bark and scurry at shadows, seem content to curl near doorways and watch. The forest, too, has changed. You walk its paths more now. Not alone, but not always with company either. Daikichi has taken to bringing you with him when he sets snares or checks for wild ginger. His movements are deliberate, his silence thoughtful. Once you ask him why he doesn't bring the boy. He replies only, "The boy will learn later. You are learning now." It's the first time he said so much at once. One morning, after the frost finally breaks and the air begins to carry the first breath of spring, he takes you deeper into the woods, far past the shrine, beyond the old charcoal pit. The path narrows until it is barely more than a trace, overgrown and coiled with ivy. It leads to a clearing where stones lie in strange patterns. Not graves, not quite, but something ancient, a ring. A place where once, perhaps, people gathered long before the first house of your village was ever raised. He doesn't speak. He just stands there facing the center of the stones. You do the same. And in the stillness, you feel something stir. Not wind, not memory, but presence. Later that night, you ask Daikichi about it. He does not answer directly. Instead, he tells you that not everything in these woods was made for people, that there are places where words were never meant to be spoken, and that sometimes to live in a land you must learn when to listen and when to step aside. Then he tells you to sleep. You do. The next morning, the frost is gone. The fields are ready for turning, and the boy is finally old enough to join the men. He walks beside you, his bundle light, his face pale with nervous pride. Daikichi walks ahead, hands behind his back, his feet sure. And for the first time, it feels like you're not just passing through this place. Not just surviving it, but becoming part of it. The earth is softer now. Where once your feet cracked through frost with every step, now they sink gently into damp, pliant soil. The thaw has come. Slowly, hesitantly, but it is here. Tiny blades of green emerge between last season's stubble. The first cherry buds, small, tight fists of pink, dot the branches with promise. And with the changing earth comes changing labour. Today is not for rice, today is for barley. The men rise early, assembling near the tool hut, each gripping a hoe or spade with the same quiet reverence as a monk with prayer beads. The fields must be turned before the spring rains arrive, and the ground must be aerated, ridged, combed into tidy furrows that can drink the sky and yield something worth keeping. You work beside Daikichi. The boy trails just behind, his first day in the real fields. He has his father's walk already, balanced, grounded, but his hands are soft still, his grip uncertain. You watch as he struggles to lift the hoe and bring it down with rhythm. He tries to hide it. He bites his lower lip, his shoulders tense. No one mocks him. That would be cruel. Here, effort is praised quietly, with silence, with nods, with patience. And so Daikichi says nothing, just lets the boy swing and miss and swing again until the dirt begins to rise in rough, uneven rows. You and Daikichi work in tandem. He strikes, you comb. You strike, he smooths. The soil yields to you more easily now. Not with joy, but with familiarity. Your hands are blistered, but not broken. Your back aches, but no longer seizes in protest. You're changing, becoming shaped by the same land that shapes the barley. The sun rises higher, and sweat trickles down your spine. You remove your outer robe, tie it around your waist. The air smells of warm soil and distant wood smoke. Occasionally, the faint chime of a bell floats from the shrine, carried by a breeze that has touched pine needles and river water before brushing your cheek. The boy stumbles once. He catches his foot on a root and falls forward into the mud. His face flushes red. He pushes himself up quickly, tries to keep moving. But Daikichi stops him, walks over and kneels beside him, not with anger, not with disappointment, just quiet presence. He picks up the hoe, adjusts the boy's grip, places his own hands over his son's, guides the swing, once, twice, then steps back. The boy looks down at the soil he's just turned, smiles, not broadly, just the small, solemn smile of someone who has done something difficult and not failed. At midday, you rest beneath a willow that has only just begun to leaf. The sun filters through branches like veins of gold. You eat your rice in silence. Daikichi eats slowly, his eyes watching the boy, who now sleeps with his arms folded behind his head, his lips parted, breath soft. You were like that too, Daikichi says. It takes you a moment to realize he's speaking to you. You fought the mud. Now you listen to it. You nod, unsure what to say. He drinks from his canteen, then adds, "The ones who last here are the ones who learn how to bend, not break." In the afternoon, a visitor arrives. A man dressed not like the villagers. His robe is dyed a soft blue, clean and travel-worn but free of the rips and patches you've come to recognize as ordinary. His straw hat is broad, hiding his face. But his walk is deliberate, and his sandals show no mud. He carries no weapon, only a scroll tucked into the sleeve of his outer robe. The villagers notice him immediately. Daikichi sets down his tool and walks toward the path, wiping his hands on a cloth. The man bows, speaks softly. You can't hear the words, but you see the change in Daikichi's posture. First still, then alert, then thoughtful. They speak for several minutes. The man removes the scroll, unrolls it, points to a name near the bottom. Daikichi's gaze flickers. Then he calls for the headman. By sundown, the village gathers again, this time not in fear but curiosity. The traveller is introduced. He is a messenger. From a distant town near the coast, he brings news and a request. A monk, well-respected, aging 1 to several lords, has passed away. He left behind a collection of writings, stories, observations, and names. Among them, the name of Daikichi's grandfather. Not as a warrior, not as a landholder, but as a witness. The monk wrote of a time, many years ago, when he was lost in the mountain paths during winter, and a farmer took him in, fed him, kept him alive, spoke of spirits in the river and the ways of old rice. The monk remembered. And now his students wish to preserve these memories. The traveller has come to ask, will Daikichi share what his grandfather passed down? Will the story be told? There is silence. Then Daikichi says something unexpected. He points to you and says your name. You look up. He does not smile, but his voice is firm. This one listens. The villagers murmur. You feel their eyes, but they are not sharp now. They are curious. And the messenger nods slowly. Tomorrow, he says, you and he will speak, and you will begin to write, not for the court, not for power, but to remember, to preserve the breath of this village, this soil, this way of being, before it vanishes like smoke in wind. That night, Daikichi pours you a cup of sake. It is bitter, but you drink it, and for the first time you feel that perhaps you will last here. The earth is softer now. Where once your feet cracked through frost with every step, now they sink gently into damp, pliant soil. The thaw has come. Slowly, hesitantly, but it is here. Tiny blades of green emerge between last season's stubble. The first cherry buds, small tight fists of pink, dot the branches with promise, and with the changing earth comes changing labour. Today is not for rice, today is for barley. The men rise early, assembling near the tool hut, each gripping a hoe or spade with the same quiet reverence as a monk with prayer beads. The fields must be turned before the spring rains arrive, and the ground must be aerated, ridged, combed into tidy furrows that can drink the sky and yield something worth keeping. You work beside Daikichi. The boy trails just behind, his first day in the real fields. He has his father's walk already, balanced, grounded, but his hands are soft still, his grip uncertain. You watch as he struggles to lift the hoe and bring it down with rhythm. He tries to hide it. He bites his lower lip. His shoulders tense. No one mocks him. That would be cruel. Here, effort is praised quietly, with silence, with nods, with patience. And so Daikichi says nothing, just lets the boy swing and miss and swing again until the dirt begins to rise in rough, uneven rows. You and Daikichi work in tandem. He strikes, you comb. You strike, he smooths. The soil yields to you more easily now, not with joy, but with familiarity. Your hands are blistered, but not broken. Your back aches, but no longer seizes in protest. You're changing, becoming shaped by the same land that shapes the barley. The sun rises higher and sweat trickles down your spine. You remove your outer robe, tie it around your waist. The air smells of warm soil and distant wood smoke. Occasionally the faint chime of a bell floats from the shrine, carried by a breeze that has touched pine needles and river water before brushing your cheek. The boy stumbles once. He catches his foot on a root and falls forward into the mud. His face flushes red. He pushes himself up quickly, tries to keep moving, but Daikichi stops him, walks over and kneels beside him. Not with anger, not with disappointment, just quiet presence. He picks up the hoe, adjusts the boy's grip, places his own hands over his son's, guides the swing, once, twice, then steps back. The boy looks down at the soil he's just turned, smiles, not broadly, just the small, solemn smile of someone who has done something difficult and not failed. At midday, you rest beneath a willow that has only just begun to leaf. The sun filters through branches like veins of gold. You eat your rice in silence. Daikichi eats slowly, his eyes watching the boy, who now sleeps with his arms folded behind his head, his lips parted, breath soft. "You were like that too," Daikichi says. It takes you a moment to realize he's speaking to you. You fought the mud, now you listen to it. You nod, unsure what to say. He drinks from his canteen, then adds, "The ones who last here are the ones who learn how to bend, not break." In the afternoon, a visitor arrives. A man dressed not like the villagers. His robe is dyed a soft blue, clean and travel-worn, but free of the rips and patches you've come to recognize as ordinary. His straw hat is broad, hiding his face, but his walk is deliberate, and his sandals show no mud. He carries no weapon, only a scroll tucked into the sleeve of his outer robe. The villagers notice him immediately. Daikichi sets down his tool and walks toward the path, wiping his hands on a cloth. The man bows, speaks softly. You can't hear the words, but you see the change in Daikichi's posture. First still, then alert, then thoughtful. They speak for several minutes. The man removes the scroll, unrolls it, points to a name near the bottom. Daikichi's gaze flickers. Then he calls for the headman. By sundown, the village gathers again, this time not in fear but curiosity. The traveller is introduced. He is a messenger. From a distant town near the coast, he brings news and a request. A monk well respected, aging once a tutor to several lords, has passed away. He left behind a collection of writings, stories, observations, and names. Among them, the name of Daikichi's grandfather. Not as a warrior, not as a landholder, but as a witness. The monk wrote of a time, many years ago, when he was lost in the mountain paths during winter, and a farmer took him in, fed him, kept him alive, spoke of spirits in the river and the ways of old rice. The monk remembered, and now his students wish to preserve these memories. The traveller has come to ask, will Daikichi share what his grandfather passed down? Will the story be told? There is silence. Then Daikichi says something unexpected. He points to you and says your name. You look up. He does not smile, but his voice is firm. This one listens. The villagers murmur. You feel their eyes, but they are not sharp now. They are curious. And the messenger nods slowly. Tomorrow, he says, you and he will speak, and you will begin to write, not for the court, not for power, but to remember, to preserve the breath of this village, this soil, this way of being before it vanishes like smoke in wind. That night, Daikichi pours you a cup of sake. It is bitter, but you drink it. and for the first time you feel that perhaps you will last here. The next morning arrives not with urgency, but with a strange suspended stillness. The clouds hang low, almost close enough to touch, softening the edges of everything. The rooftops, the tree lines, even the distant hills you've come to recognize by shape alone. The earth feels damp beneath your feet, as though it too is listening. The messenger waits near the shrine. He sits cross-legged beside the old fox statue, a scroll unrolled in his lap, brush and inkstone laid carefully beside him. There's a bundle of paper at his side and a small, worn book tucked under his robe. He does not speak as you approach. He simply looks up, offers a slow nod and gestures to the spot beside him. You sit, and for a long while neither of you says a word. The shrine bell sways gently overhead. No one rings it, but the wind nudges it into song. Somewhere behind the trees the river chatters softly, full again with melted frost. Then the messenger begins. Not with questions, but with a story. A story of the monk who wandered here many years before. The man who crossed mountain paths too early in the season, who lost his horse in the ice and his way in the fog. Who nearly died on the ridgeline, feet blackening with cold. He speaks of the fire that saved him, the smoke that led him to a small house on the hill, where an old farmer opened the door without a word and placed hot barley tea into his hands. That man, the messenger says, was Daikichi's grandfather. The monk never forgot. And now the world beyond the mountains wants to remember. You are to write. The brush feels strange in your fingers, slender, delicate, nothing like the tools you've grown used to, but the ink is thick and rich, and the first mark on the paper comes surprisingly easily. The messenger corrects your grip gently, then lets you move at your own rhythm. You copy the old monk's words first, line by line, your brush strokes hesitant but growing more fluid with each repetition. As you write, he tells you more, not just about the monk, but about other villages. Other places like this one, tucked into corners of forest and valley, slowly disappearing, some swallowed by war, others by flood, some simply forgotten. The scrolls, he says, are like stones placed in a river, markers, to show where life once flowed. That afternoon, Daikichi joins you. He does not sit. He stands, arms folded, and watches for a long time. Then, when the messenger steps away to prepare tea, Daikichi speaks softly. Do not write for them, he says. You look up, unsure what he means. Write for this place, he continues. For the boy, for his children, so they will know. He says nothing else, but the words remain. You return to writing, this time not just the monk's stories, but the ones you remember now, with the weight of living them, the frost of your first morning. The rice bowl offered without words, the scream in the night that no one dared to speak of, the red cloth beneath the moss, the hand that guided the boy's grip on a hoe. You write slowly, carefully, and the words feel heavier, more real. That evening the messenger thanks you. He will return in 3 days, he says, to collect the pages. He bows deeply, deeper than he did when he first arrived. Then he leaves you with more parchment, more ink, and a small lacquered box with a single sheet of gold leaf inside. To honor the story, he says. The villagers observe all this quietly. They do not crowd you. They do not praise or question. But you notice that, when you walk through the fields the next day, some of the elders bow slightly as you pass. Just a tilt of the head, nothing more. It is enough. 2 days later, the boy sits beside you. He does not ask permission. He simply crouches on his heels, watching as you write. Then, without looking away, he says, "Will you write about me?" You pause, set the brush down, and nod. He smiles. It's the same solemn smile he gave the day he turned the soil for the first time. And for a long while, the two of you sit there. The ink dries on the paper. The wind carries the scent of plum blossoms, and the sky, grey, soft, endless, presses gently against the curve of the earth. The rains begin that night, not with thunder, not with wind, but with a whisper. Fine droplets falling straight and steady from a sky as smooth and dark as inkstone. You lie awake beneath the eaves, listening. The sound is constant, unbroken, like a string stretched taut across the mountains, humming with the breath of something ancient. The roof leaks a little in the corner of the room, not enough to disturb the household, just enough to leave a damp circle where a straw mat touches the floor. Daikichi rises to place a pot beneath it, then returns to his place without a word. The boy stirs beside the hearth, murmurs in his sleep. A name, perhaps, or a memory. You close your eyes, and the rain continues. By morning, the paths have turned to mud. The village is subdued. No firewood is chopped today. No fields are tilled. Only essential tasks are seen to: chickens fed, tools checked, fish traps gathered from the shallows of the swollen stream. The children remain indoors. Even the dogs hide from the chill. You are tasked with helping Daikichi reinforce the foundation of the house. The rain may seem gentle, but too many days of it can turn the earth to soup. You crouch beside him under the eaves, slipping lengths of oiled rope around the base of the stilts, stacking stones with methodical care. Your fingers sting with cold. The clay sticks to your nails. "Flood took my uncle's house once," Daikichi says. It's the first sentence he's spoken in hours. You glance at him. He doesn't look up from his work. Spring rain started early. Earth softened. Pillars sank. Half the house was gone before they woke. You nod. The weight of the rope in your hand suddenly feels heavier. "You can't stop water," he continues. "Only listen to it. Read its voice. Give it a path." He finishes tying the final knot, then looks toward the hills, where the mist has begun to curl downward. The mountain never forgets. That afternoon you sit indoors, writing by firelight. The ink runs more easily today, thinned by the damp air. Your brush glides across the parchment with a strange elegance, lines once jagged now flowing with the same rhythm as the rain beyond the paper walls. You write of the village, the barley, the boy, the fox shrine. But you also write of water, of the way it sings through the stones, of how it carves even the hardest rock, not with force, but with time. The boy joins you again. He watches for a while silent. Then, hesitantly, he speaks. "My mother says the rain carries voices." You pause. He continues. "She says when the world gets too heavy, it cries for us. So we don't have to." You look at him. He's not smiling, just watching the flame flicker beside the ink. Then he asks, "Can you write that down too?" You dip your brush and do. That night, the headman visits. Unannounced, but expected. He sits near the hearth. Daikichi offers him tea, which he accepts without ceremony. For a while, they talk of ordinary things: fish traps, an elder's illness, the condition of the bridge near the northern fields. But eventually, the headman turns to you. "The messenger returns tomorrow," he says. You nod. "I've read what you've written," he continues. Your heart tightens slightly, but he does not criticize. He simply adds, "You see more now than most outsiders do in years." There is something gentle in his voice, but then it sharpens just slightly. "Do not mistake knowing for belonging," he says. "They are not the same." You bow your head. He rises. But before he leaves, he turns back and says, "When a tree grows in a new forest, it does not ask to be accepted. It simply reaches for the same light." Then he is gone. The rain does not stop. It softens briefly, then returns, a steady rhythm, like breath, like memory. You sit awake long after Daikichi and his family sleep, watching the glow of the coals, listening to the roof settle with soft creaks, and writing quietly in the margins of the scroll, "I am learning to hear what the mountain does not say." Morning breaks like wet silk, soft, cold, and grey. The messenger arrives just past sunrise. His hat is drawn low and his sleeves are soaked to the elbow. He carries no umbrella, only a long oilcloth bundle slung across his back. When he steps into Daikichi's home, he bows low, water dripping from the hem of his robes and pooling quietly on the floor. The scrolls are ready, neatly stacked, pressed between lacquered boards bound with cloth you were given just days before. You hand them over with both hands, palms up, head low. The messenger accepts them with a reverence usually reserved for ritual. He does not open them. Not here. Not now. Instead, he sets them aside and sits by the fire, warming his fingers against the crackling heat. Daikichi pours him tea. There are no questions asked, no discussions of what was written or how it was phrased. In this place, trust is quieter than curiosity. When the messenger finishes his tea, he bows again. Then, reaching into the folds of his robe, he produces a second scroll, this one older. The parchment is yellowed and cracked at the corners, tied with black cord. He places it before you. "For you," he says, "the monk wrote it, years before he died." You untie the cord slowly. The paper creaks. Inside, a short letter, written in an elegant, sparse hand. The brushwork is faded, the strokes more fragile than the ones you've seen in preserved court documents. It begins without preamble, "To the one who may walk behind me." The monk speaks of solitude, of walking through storms with no direction, of learning to read the shape of wind by watching how leaves fall. He writes of hunger, not just of the body but of the soul. The hunger to be understood, the hunger to leave something behind. He writes of Daikichi's grandfather. "He gave me a place to be invisible," the monk writes. "And that, I think, is the highest kindness." And then, toward the end, "If you are reading this, you are also trying to understand a place that does not wish to explain itself." That is good. It means you are still listening. You read it 3 times, then fold it gently. The messenger does not ask if you understand. He only says there are fewer of us now, who carry stories, fewer who want to. He bows once more, then gathers the scrolls and steps out into the mist. You watch him go. His form fades quickly into the trees, swallowed by the rain and the white breath of the mountains. The days that follow are marked by stillness. The rain continues, softer now, no longer pressing, just constant. A quiet that nestles into the bones of everything. The village slows, tasks become internal, nets are repaired indoors, woven mats are mended, clothes are patched and re-dyed. The world shrinks inward, like breath being held. You find yourself writing still, not for the scrolls now, but for yourself. Scraps of thought, fragments of sound, a hawk call above the fields, the way Daikichi sharpens his blade in the rhythm of his breathing, the shape of the boy's laugh when he dreams. You press them into paper like seeds, unsure if they'll grow, but needing them to rest somewhere. One morning, the boy offers you something, a folded leaf, tied with a strand of hair. Inside, a single red plum blossom, still closed. You look up, he shrugs. "It hasn't bloomed yet," he says, "but it will." That afternoon, Daikichi takes you to the North Ridge. A steep, narrow path leads through tangled roots and rocks slick with moss. The climb is slow. He says little. The wind picks up as you ascend, curling down from the ridgeline like a whisper from another world. At the top, the view opens. You can see everything. The fields below, stitched into the valley like a patchwork of memory. The river carving its path with quiet certainty. The roofs of the village, crooked, smoke-threaded, enduring. Daikichi stands beside you, hands in his sleeves. He says only, "You understand now." You don't ask what he means, because you do. The village is not just a place. It is a rhythm, a breath, a memory passed from soil to footstep, from fire to word. And you are a part of it now, not because you were invited, but because you chose to listen, to bend, to stay. When the rains finally stop, the sun returns not in brilliance, but in golden hush. The first bloom opens on the plum tree, and the boy is the first to see it. The light has changed. It slips through the air differently now, warmer, gentler, casting long golden fingers through the trees at dawn and painting the thatched rooftops in soft amber at dusk. The rain has passed, and in its absence the world breathes deeply again. The paths dry in patches, the stones glisten. The village is waking to spring. And with spring comes preparation. Everything must be readied before the planting season begins. The rice fields must be repaired, the canals cleared of leaves and silt, the terraces reshaped and reinforced with stone. The rhythms of survival return in earnest, predictable, ancient, relentless. You are sent to the stream today. Daikichi walks ahead with his usual quiet certainty, a rake over one shoulder, a sickle tied at his waist. You carry a basket and a woven net. The boy follows closely, still young enough to skip when the path turns downhill. He hums under his breath. It's a melody you've heard before, something his mother sings when she stirs the soup pot. The stream is swollen from the recent rains. It gurgles and chatters, moving fast over smooth stones, rushing around the thick roots of cedar trees that lean out over the banks like old guards. Small fish flash in the shallows. Water spiders skim the surface like ink brushes. Daikichi begins his work without a word, checking the reeds near the water's edge, clearing dead branches from the banks, gathering river grass to be dried and braided into cord. You are tasked with the traps. Wicker cones submerged upstream, tied to stones. Their narrow mouths allow fish to enter, but not to leave. You pull the first from the water slowly. It resists, weighted by silt and life. Inside, 2 pale fish still gasping. You place them gently into the basket. The boy claps softly. "Quick ones," he says. You nod, smiling. At the next trap, you find something unexpected. Not fish, but a stone, placed deliberately inside the trap, wedged into the entrance. Strange. Daikichi notices you pause. He kneels beside you, takes the stone in hand, turns it once, then nods. Marking, he says. For what? Otter, he answers. Tells others not to come. You blink, surprised. He taps the stone with his knuckle. They remember. You glance back at the stream. An otter, perhaps. Clever enough to claim territory. Bold enough to tamper with a trap. He doesn't seem angry. He simply resets the trap and moves on. As you follow, you think about the otter, about memory, about territory, and you wonder how much of what lives here remembers more than it shows. Later, as the sun climbs, you find shelter beneath a leaning maple. The boy dozes beside the stream, head resting on your rolled robe. Daikichi sits cross-legged on a flat stone, sharpening his sickle with long, even strokes. He speaks without looking up. When I was his age, he says, I followed my uncle into the woods, thought I was helping, picked the wrong plant, poisoned the stew. You look at him, startled. He continues, No one died, but no one trusted me to forage again for 3 years. He looks up then. Now I teach him. You nod. It isn't forgiveness, it's understanding. By early afternoon you head back toward the village. The fish are wrapped in leaves and packed in salt. The reeds are tied in bundles. The water-soaked hem of your trousers is heavy, but you no longer mind. You walk behind Daikichi beside the boy. His hands are dirty, his knees stained green. He speaks as you walk. I dreamed of the mountain last night. You glance at him. Did it speak to you? You ask, half smiling. He shakes his head. It just watched. He's silent for a moment, then adds, But I wasn't afraid. That evening you helped Daikichi smoke the fish. A low fire, slow heat. The smoke curls thickly under the slatted roof of the shed, staining the wood dark, filling your clothes and hair with the scent of cedar and ash. The boy fans the coals carefully, brow furrowed in concentration. Daikichi checks the skins, turns the bundles with metal hooks. Smoke remembers too, he says. You ask what he means. He gestures upward. The beams. You see the colour? You nod. Deep brown, almost black. 50 years of smoke, he says. Maybe more. Every winter. Every fire. Every hand that fed the coals. He runs a finger across one of the beams. This is how a house tells time. You look around the shed and see not just walls but memory. That night, back in the house, the boy brings out a thin branch. The plum blossom is fully open now. He sets it carefully in a small clay jar near the hearth, then sits beside it, watching it quietly. You ask if he wants you to write about it. He shakes his head. Not yet, he says, and so you wait. The blossom holds its shape, perfect, brief, enough. The wind shifts. It no longer carries the brittle sting of winter, nor the dense hush of rain. It's lighter now, carrying scents of damp bark, thawed grass, and blossoms too shy to open all at once. It threads through the village like a thin ribbon, tugging gently at sleeves, stirring laundry on bamboo poles, and teasing strands of hair loose from every tied knot. It is the season of turning. Planting is near, and with it the village pivots, every movement, every voice, every shared glance now aligned toward preparation. There is no panic, only quiet urgency, a rhythm older than any individual heart. You are sent to the terraces. High above the central fields where the slope meets the sun, the land has been carved into wide, shallow steps. Centuries of labour have shaped them, smoothed their curves, layered them with stone and soil. Here water flows more carefully, guided by ancient hands and remembered by each generation. Daikichi leads a small group. 6 men, you among them, each one with a task. One clears stones, one repairs the walls, 2 adjust the canals, opening and sealing with packed clay. You and Daikichi dredge the silt, your legs submerged up to your knees, your hands numb from the chill, your sleeves dark with cold mud. The work is exhausting, but not brutal. It moves with a kind of grace, each man knowing when to pass the bucket, when to lift, when to step aside. Words are few, faces are focused. You learn to read gestures. A tilted chin means shift left. A raised brow means wait. A subtle flick of fingers means stop. Mid-morning, you pause. The sun breaks through the clouds in fractured beams, lighting the terraces in gold. From where you kneel, the fields stretch outward like mirrors, still, waiting, patient. A voice breaks the silence. Do you know what these walls are made of? It's an older man, one you've seen often but rarely heard speak. He points to the lip of the terrace. Stone, yes, but more than that. You wait. They're made of mistakes. He smiles. Every time one collapsed, we rebuilt it, each one better than the last. You see a wall. I see 20 seasons. You bow slightly, not out of politeness, but because you believe him. That afternoon, as you work deeper into the terraces, the soil changes. It becomes heavier, slicker. Daikichi inspects it, frowns. He digs carefully near the edge, just a hand's breadth, and uncovers an old pipe, a hollowed piece of bamboo long forgotten. He pulls it free, mud spilling from its core. Too shallow, he mutters. It'll flood the top tier if it rains too hard. The others gather. A decision must be made. Divert the water? Risk losing the top layer? Rebuild the channel? Lose a day of work? Arguments rise, soft but pointed. You listen, then quietly you speak. You suggest moving the inlet higher by a single stone's width. Less pressure, less risk. The idea is simple, and it works. By evening, the pipe flows clean again. The soil settles. Daikichi does not praise you, but as you gather your tools, he hands you his own rake, carries the heavier load himself. That is enough. That night, back at the house, Daikichi's wife prepares a stew thicker than usual, root vegetables, bits of dried fish, miso stirred in slowly, evenly. The boy sets the bowls, careful to place yours beside the fire where the warmth lingers longer. No words are exchanged, but you feel the shift, an ease, a familiarity that no longer requires ceremony. Later, the headman visits. He enters without formality, nods once to Daikichi, removes his sandals and sits near the hearth. You pour him tea. He accepts it without comment. Then, after a long silence, he speaks. The terrace is held this year. Daikichi nods. A good sign. The headman adds. Then to you. Many men come here thinking they can tame the land. He watches the steam rise from his cup. They don't last. He drinks, sets the cup down. You haven't tamed it, he says, but it hasn't thrown you out. That too is enough. As the fire dies low, you step outside. The wind carries petals now. Only a few, early blossoms, scattered from a plum tree at the edge of the path. They drift in slow circles, touch the earth and vanish. You catch one in your palm. It rests there, fragile, weightless, and you realize for the first time you are not waiting to leave. The air smells of water. Not rain. Rain has passed, but of standing water, of damp soil thick with old roots, of algae and silt, and the deep breath of the earth ready to drink. This is the scent of planting season. The moment when stillness gives way to motion, and the village moves as one body into the fields. You rise before the light. Daikichi is already awake. He kneels in front of the household shrine, hands pressed together. The boy watches him from the doorway, mimicking the gesture in silence. The fire crackles low, rice already steaming over its heat. The air inside the house is close with the warmth of morning labor about to begin. You eat quickly, just rice and pickles, a single salted plum, and then you go. The village gathers in the mist, not in disorder, not in command, but with a quiet gravity. The headman speaks only briefly, his voice muffled by the fog. He thanks the mountain, thanks the river. Thanks the ancestors who carved the terraces and first brought rice to these hills. No one claps. No one speaks in reply. Then the work begins. You wade into the paddies with the others. The cold strikes first, sudden and sharp, crawling up your calves and into your bones. Then the mud, thick, sucking, determined to claim your steps. Your feet vanish into it, your balance wavers, you nearly fall. But Daikichi's hand finds your elbow, steadies you. You bow your head slightly. He nods. Seedlings are brought in baskets, small green shoots bundled tightly, pulled from their nursery beds, each one cradled like a whisper. You reach in, take a handful and begin. The rows must be perfect. Not in width, not in symmetry, in rhythm. Each seedling must rest just below the surface, roots anchored, leaves above water. You bend, plant, step, over and over, hundreds, thousands. Time disappears. The world becomes your breath, your steps, your hands reaching into water. Sometimes the boy works beside you. He is slower, more hesitant, but determined. Daikichi never scolds, only watches. Occasionally adjusts his posture with a gentle touch to the shoulder. The sun rises behind the mist, and still you plant. You begin to hear it, the sound of the village moving together. Not noise, not chaos, just the shuffling of feet in water, the slosh of movement, the rustle of woven cloth. The soft exhale of those focused on something older than themselves. At midday, the headman rings a small bell. Everyone stops. You eat beside the paddy, on a wide stone warmed by the morning sun. Rice balls wrapped in bamboo leaves, dried sweet potato, a bit of tea. The silence of the meal is not forced. It is part of the day, just as the planting is. No one speaks until the bell rings again. Then the rhythm resumes. By late afternoon, your hands are shaking. Your knees burn, your back protests every bend, but you do not stop, because no one else does, because the work must be finished before the rains return. By sundown, the final row is planted, the last seedling nestled into the earth. You straighten slowly. The sky is turning to flame, streaks of orange and purple caught in the reflections of the flooded fields. The water mirrors the sky so perfectly, you feel as though you're walking through the clouds. Daikichi stands beside you, arms folded, gaze distant. He nods once. No words. None needed. The walk back to the village is quiet. You carry the empty baskets. The boy sleeps on Daikichi's back, head nestled against his father's shoulder. His feet dangle, coated in mud, swinging gently with each step. At the house, you remove your sandals, wash the dirt from your legs, soak your hands in warm water. The ache settles into you like a memory. You sit by the fire, watching steam curl from the cooking pot. Daikichi's wife ladles soup into bowls, miso and mountain greens. She sets one before you and says softly, "You planted well." You bow your head. The boy stirs awake, blinking, then leans against you without a word. Outside, the frogs begin to sing, 100 voices rising from the paddies you helped fill, a lullaby of earth and water, of labour and promise. You close your eyes, and for the first time you dream not of the world you came from, but of the one you are helping grow. The days that follow are quiet, but they hum with life. After planting, the village exhales. Not in idleness, there is no such thing here, but in a slower rhythm. The heavy work is done. Now comes the waiting, the tending, the watching. The rice will grow if the water holds, if the wind is gentle, if the gods are kind. You rise each morning to the soft splash of sandals through shallow water. The villagers patrol the paddies, checking the flow of irrigation, clearing weeds, listening to the whispers of frogs and the buzz of dragonflies as they skim low over the mirrored fields. Daikichi takes you along the ridgelines. He walks in silence, watching the edges. His eyes are always measuring, whether the banks have weakened, whether the water moves too fast or too slow. He kneels often, pushing small stones into soft places, reinforcing walls with his bare hands. "You don't hold the water," he says one day. "You guide it. It knows where to go." The boy helps too, when he can. He carries the smaller baskets, pulls stubborn weeds, kneels with his sleeves rolled up and mud drying on his arms. His laughter has returned, lighter now, rising easily into the spring air. He seems taller, straighter. There's something in his movements, a quiet pride, a growing certainty. The evenings stretch longer. With the sun lingering above the trees, the village takes its ease. Small groups gather near the fire pits, mending tools, sharing small bowls of sake, humming old songs. The women sit on the steps with baskets of greens in their laps. Children chase each other between houses, their laughter trailing like wind-blown petals. You begin to notice things you missed before. The way the plum tree leans slightly east, as if bowing to the mountain. The exact moment the bell at the shrine catches the wind each evening. The narrow path behind Daikichi's house that leads to a spring-fed basin, cold and clear as glass. You begin to write again. Not for the messenger who has not returned. Not for the scrolls. Just for yourself. You write with the same patience Daikichi uses to reinforce the terraces, slowly, without hurry, as though each word must be placed with care so that none are wasted. One evening, the boy brings you something wrapped in cloth. Inside, a smooth piece of bark. On it, he has etched a small picture with a sharpened stick, simple lines but unmistakable. It is the field, the paddies, the mountain beyond, and in the foreground, 3 figures. You, him, and Daikichi. He points to each, naming them with a smile. You trace the drawing with your finger, then tuck it gently into your scroll case. Outside, a wind stirs the bamboo. The sky has begun to shift again. The nights are warmer, the insects louder, the frogs now joined by crickets, and the air holds a sweetness that wasn't there before, a scent of new grass, of river reeds, of rice just beginning to reach toward the sky. One night, you cannot sleep. You step outside alone, walking barefoot along the edge of the fields. The moon is high and full, its reflection stretched across the water in silver lines. The paddies are alive, small ripples, soft rustlings, tiny lights where fireflies blink lazily in the reeds. You reach the fox shrine without intending to. The statue still stands crooked, still watching. You kneel, out of habit now. Not from belief, but from respect. And in that quiet moment, beneath the weight of moonlight and silence, you feel it again, the sense that the land is watching too, not in judgment, but in memory. You whisper a single word, not in your own tongue, but in theirs. Arigato. Then you rise and walk home. The next day, Daikichi says nothing, but he places a folded cloth on your mat. Inside, a worn pale blue sash, stained from years of labor, frayed at the edges. You recognize it from the first days you arrived. He wore it around his waist when he bent over the fields. You look up. He only says it still holds, then turns away. But his voice is softer than usual, as though he too has begun to trust the way the water flows. Summer begins, not with fanfare, but with stillness. The mornings are no longer cool. The mist burns away faster. The soil beneath your feet holds the day's warmth long into the evening, and the breeze that once carried the sharp scent of spring now moves sluggishly, heavy with moisture and the coming weight of heat. The rice has grown. What were once delicate shoots now stand proud, their green blades swaying in low waves beneath the sky. From the ridge, the paddies look like paintings. Layer upon layer of silver-edged green, the reflection of clouds shifting slowly across the mirrored water. Life pulses in every square of land. You feel it in the hum of insects, in the wings of birds that sweep low to feed, in the soft rustle of something unseen just beneath the surface. The village slows, but does not sleep. Work changes shape. There is less labor of the back now, more of the eyes. Daikichi teaches you to watch, to notice. A subtle bow of rice heads means the soil is too dry. A strange clustering of dragonflies may signal a change in wind. Even the frogs, if they sing too early or too loud, are worth listening to. It's not superstition, he says one evening, wiping his hands on a cloth. It's patience. The boy now runs messages between households. He is nimble, faster than most, and his memory is sharp. You watch him from afar, tracing the same paths you once stumbled over, his face lit with confidence that surprises even his father. Daikichi does not say so, but you know he is proud. You spend more time writing again, under the eaves during the hot hours or near the fields in the late afternoon when the shadows grow long. The pages fill slowly, observations, conversations, shapes in the wind. You record the way Daikichi sharpens his tools, the way his wife ties bundles of herbs for drying, the way the boy chews rice with his mouth slightly open when he's thinking. It's not the writing of grand things, but it feels like truth. The messenger has not returned. The scrolls you gave him months ago now feel distant, like a thread that stretches to a world you once belonged to but no longer remember with clarity. You begin to forget certain sounds, certain smells. Even the shapes of letters in your native tongue begin to lose their edges. One evening, the headman calls for a gathering. Not urgent, but rare enough to draw the full attention of the village. It's held near the central path where the old pine still stands with its broad branches like outstretched arms. Mats are laid out, lanterns hung, children sit at their mothers' feet. The air is filled with the buzz of night insects and the faint scent of grilled fish from a nearby house. The headman speaks softly. He thanks the village for a successful planting, praises the patience of those who held the water, who mended the terraces, who endured the long cold. Then he tells a story of a time, years ago, when the river swelled too soon, when the seedlings were swept away before the mountain thaw had finished. He speaks of loss, not as tragedy but as teacher, of how the village rebuilt, of how knowledge was passed not by books, but by watching, by staying. And then he gestures to you. You feel every eye. The headman does not praise, does not name. He simply says there is a story now in the paddies, one that was not here before. You bow, deeply, not to accept honor, but to return it. After the gathering, Daikichi does something strange. He takes you walking, just the two of you, not toward the fields, not toward the forest, but up, past the terraces, past the shrine, up a narrow path worn by feet you'll never meet, lined with stones too old to name. At the top there's a clearing, flat, wide, silent, a place of sky and wind. Daikichi kneels near the center. You follow. He places a stone from his sleeve beside a cluster of others, some old moss-covered, some newer, all carefully arranged. Those who watched before us, he says. He doesn't explain, he doesn't need to. You place your hand on one of the older stones. It is warm, alive in its way, and as the wind moves through the clearing you understand something without words. You are being remembered. Not by name, not by title, but by presence. You are becoming part of the story now, one step, one breath, one season at a time. The heat deepens. It settles into the skin, into the grain of wood and the folds of cloth, into the cracks between stones and the hollows of water jars. The sky becomes a polished, cloudless sheet. The sun, no longer a gentle guardian, begins to press down with quiet insistence. Shadows shorten. Breath feels heavier. Everything slows. And yet, life continues. The village adapts. Wide-brimmed hats are worn from morning until dusk. Water is drawn more frequently, and each trip to the stream carries not only a task, but the quiet hope of cool relief. Meals grow simpler: cold barley tea, salted cucumbers, soft tofu dressed with vinegar and scallions. The fire is used sparingly now and always near an open door. You feel it in your body, a heaviness, but not exhaustion. It is something older, a presence in your limbs that tells you summer is not simply endured, it is carried. You work less now, not from lack of effort, but because the fields demand less of your hands. The rice stands tall, thriving. What remains to do is guarding, against pests, against imbalance, against forgetting. The boy is often tasked with watching. He takes it seriously. His eyes scan the paddies with the same quiet focus you once saw in Daikichi. You begin to teach him to write. It starts one morning when he finds you with your scroll open, your brush in hand. He crouches beside you, silent, then asks, "What does that say?" You read the line aloud. He repeats it. Then shyly asks, "Can I try?" You hand him the brush. He grips it awkwardly. His first stroke is crooked, the second too faint, but his gaze doesn't falter. His tongue rests between his teeth in concentration. He writes the character for water, Mizu, again and again until it resembles something closer to itself. You tell him it's enough for today. He shakes his head. Once more. That night, Daikichi watches him trace letters in the air with his finger while he falls asleep. He says nothing, but you see the flicker of something in his eyes. The next day, the shrine bell rings, not for prayer, not for warning, but for announcement. The village will hold a festival, not grand, not like the ones in the cities, but enough to mark the season, to thank the gods, to remind each other that even in toil there is joy. Preparations begin at once. The women hang streamers of cloth between homes, their edges fraying slightly from festivals long past. Lanterns are checked and mended, their bamboo frames reshaped and covered again in fresh paper. The older children gather branches to build a fire near the central path. You are given a task you didn't expect. Music. Daikichi leads you to a trunk, half buried beneath a shelf in the storage house. Inside, an old taiko drum. Its skin is tight but faded, the wooden body wrapped in cord. He lifts it carefully and sets it before you. "You played before," he says. You hesitate. "It's true. Long ago, in another life, your hands once knew rhythm. But not like this," you reply. He shrugs. "Then learn again." That evening, you sit beneath the tree near the field, testing the drum's voice. It is deep, resonant. When struck gently, it hums through your ribs. When struck with force, it wakes the air itself. The boy joins you. You show him how to strike with the wrist, not the arm. How to let the sound breathe before the next beat. He learns quickly. His sense of rhythm is natural, like the pulse of frogs in the paddies at night. Soon others gather. A woman brings sho, a bamboo mouth organ. Another, a small flute. An elder finds the binza sara, its cascading wooden slats clacking like falling rain. No one speaks of performance, only presence. When the night of the festival comes, the moon is full again. The village is dressed in colour, dyed robes, headbands, small tokens pinned to sleeves and obi. The air is fragrant with sweet rice cakes, with grilled river fish, with the sharp tang of fermented plum. The fire burns high. Children laugh, spinning in circles, lanterns bobbing from sticks. The drum calls them forward, not as command, but invitation. You strike slowly at first, then with rhythm, then with release. The sound fills the field. It moves like wind through branches, like feet through water. Daikichi watches from the edge of the gathering, arms folded. His wife dances once, slowly, with the older women, her hands tracing shapes into the air. The boy drums beside you. And for a moment everything disappears, the ache in your back, the heaviness of the season, the memory of cities, of roads, of names. There is only rhythm, only flame. Only the sound of laughter rising like mist into a sky lit by stars that no longer feel so distant. Later, when the fire dies down and the drums are silent and the lanterns begin to sway in the cooler breeze of midnight, the boy falls asleep beside you. His hand still rests on the drum, and you realize this is not a life borrowed. It is a life built. The festival fades like the echo of a bell, lingering in the heart long after the sound has gone. Morning returns, soft and hazy, with the scent of ash still clinging to sleeves and the memory of music hovering above the fields. Lanterns hang limp in the warm air, their colours dulled in daylight. The embers from the fire pit glow faintly, smothered beneath a crust of grey. You wake before the others. The boy sleeps soundly, arms still slung over the edge of the drum, mouth open just slightly, as if still tasting the rhythm. Daikichi lies near the wall, eyes closed, breathing slow and deep. His wife has already risen. You hear her outside, drawing water from the well. The house is peaceful, but outside a new rhythm stirs. The season is shifting again. The rice, once a hopeful green, now deepens into a richer shade. The blades begin to thicken, their movements less like dancing and more like bowing. In the early hours, mist clings to the paddies longer. The frogs sing less. The dragonflies are fewer. Summer is beginning to tip toward its own end. The village prepares for this in its own quiet way. Tools are cleaned and checked. Storage sheds are cleared. Daikichi mends the woven mats in the drying racks, where the rice will eventually be laid out under the sun. The headman visits each home, speaking softly with the elders. Children are asked to carry messages again, not just to neighbours, but to the hills, to the outer farms, to those who will return for harvest. There is a sense of tightening, of readiness. The boy continues to learn. Each morning he brings out a page, sometimes blank, sometimes half filled with careful brushwork. You guide his hand gently, but less often now. He copies characters with steady strokes, eyes narrowed in concentration. He still writes mizu from time to time, but now he adds he for fire, kaze for wind, and kokoro for heart. One evening he asks if he can write his own name. You help him form the characters. He repeats them aloud. Then he writes yours. And for the first time he asks how it is said in your language. You speak it softly. He repeats it back, clumsy, unfamiliar. But he smiles. It sounds like a river, he says. You don't know what to say, so you bow. Later that week you are sent to the hills. Not alone, Daikichi walks beside you, his steps steady as ever. The boy stays behind this time. It is not a journey for teaching, but for remembering. You carry offerings, bundles of dried herbs, a pouch of rice, a small piece of smoked fish wrapped in cloth. They are not for people. Not exactly. They are meant for the paths, for the old spirits who guard the land, for the invisible hands that once carved the terraces and shaped the river's curve. You visit 3 shrines. The first hidden in a grove of camphor trees, its roof half swallowed by ivy. The second, perched beside a spring where the water runs cold and fast, its basin carved from stone worn smooth by time. The third, the smallest, is barely more than a circle of rocks beneath a crooked pine. Daikichi speaks little, but when he places the offerings, his hands move with the care of ritual. You kneel when he kneels, you bow when he bows, and when the wind stirs the leaves around the third shrine, you think, just for a moment, you hear a voice. Not in sound, but in presence. That night, as the moon climbs behind thin clouds, you write by the light of a single candle. You write of stone shrines, of names carved not into tablets, but into the way paths bend and branches grow. You write of the boy's fingers, stained with ink, of Daikichi's silence, which speaks more now than ever, and of yourself, not as the stranger you once were, but as a watcher, a listener. A page within the larger scroll. Just before sleep, the boy stirs. He sits up, looks at you with heavy eyes. Is the rice ready? He asks. Not yet, you reply, but almost. He nods, then lies back down and murmurs almost to himself, then it's almost time to thank the wind. You listen to his breath slow and understand. This world does not rush. It listens, it waits, and when the moment comes, it knows. The wind returns, not with violence, not yet, but with clarity. It moves through the trees like breath through a flute, clean, sharp, rising and falling in steady pulses. The heat that had lingered for weeks begins to lift, as though some great unseen hand is peeling the heaviness from the valley one layer at a time. Shadows stretch longer. The sun begins to set with greater urgency. Crickets sing again. It is time. Harvest approaches. The village awakens earlier now. Not out of fear or haste, but instinct. The air tastes different, and every body, young and old, moves as though remembering something that was never taught, only lived. You are sent to inspect the fields. Not alone, with Daikichi and the headman. You walk the ridges slowly, tracing the curves of the paddies as they bend with the slope of the land. The rice bows now, golden, heavy, nearly ready to fall into waiting hands. The water is thinner, clearer. Less is needed now. Soon it will be drained entirely. The headman plucks a stalk and rubs a grain between his fingers. He nods once. 3 days, he says. Then he walks away. The message spreads without words. You see it in how the elders begin sharpening sickles in front of their homes, in how the children are called in earlier, their games replaced with small tasks, in how Daikichi's wife lays out old mats near the house and begins brushing them clean, humming low and slow. In the days that follow, you prepare. Ropes are coiled, poles are stripped and carved, the drying racks are checked and retied with fresh cord. You oil the blade of your sickle, testing its weight. Its edge catches the light. It will do. The boy is quieter now, not with reluctance, but reverence. He knows what's coming. He's watched his father each year. This will be his first time joining the harvest. He asks no questions. But you catch him practicing, swinging a wooden stick like a blade behind the house, mimicking the rhythm of cutting, stepping carefully along the imaginary rows. You say nothing. You simply nod when he catches your eye. The night before harvest, Daikichi does something he has not done in many months. He prepares a bowl of white rice. It is rare, saved only for offerings, for sacred days, or for honoring ancestors. He sets 3 small bowls before the household shrine, lights a thin stick of incense, and bows deeply. Then he speaks, not loudly, not solemnly, just clearly. A prayer of thanks, to the mountain, to the river, to the sun and the rain, to those who came before. The boy bows beside him, you do too. And when the rice is cleared from the shrine, Daikichi brings a portion to you. You eat it slowly, each grain distinct, each bite like a memory made solid. Morning arrives with silence. There is no rooster call, no bell. Only the sound of cloth rustling, of sandals being tied, of tools being lifted in practiced hands. You walk to the fields together. The paddies have been drained. What remains is damp earth, soft but no longer submerged. The rice stands tall and bowed, waiting. You line up along the edge of the first row. The headman raises a hand, and the cutting begins. There is no ceremony, but everything is sacred. You reach with one hand, pull the stalk taut, and cut with the other. The sickle slices clean through the base. The rice falls into your arm. You lay it gently into a bundle. Again and again. Each swing is deliberate. You feel it in your wrist, in your shoulder, in your spine. The boy works beside you. His first few cuts are awkward, too shallow, too fast. But Daikichi does not correct him. He lets him learn. And soon the rhythm finds him. The movements become smoother. The line moves forward. By midday, the bundles are tall, tied and stacked at the field's edge. The sun hangs high, hot again, but the breeze never leaves. Lunch is eaten in shade, salted rice balls, pickled vegetables, cool water. No one speaks much. There is too much work left. In the afternoon, you climb the ridge for a moment, to stretch, to breathe. And from there you see the village below, alive, moving, breathing. The fields are changing colour under the hands of those who tend them. It is not a celebration, it is a continuation. That night, the house smells of rice. Not yet from the harvest, but from the last of last year's stock, cooked in gratitude, in farewell. You sit with the boy by the fire. He holds a single grain between his fingers. Everyone is different, he says. You nod. Yes, he smiles. Then I want to remember them all. You watch the firelight dance in his eyes and you think, so do I. The harvest continues. Each day the fields grow lighter as the bundles grow taller, stacked in careful rows along the terraces like offerings to the sky. The rhythm has taken hold. Cut, gather, bind, carry. A choreography shaped by centuries. No instructions are needed now. Even the youngest children know their place, ferrying water and sweeping chaff, learning the pulse of the work in their bones. Your hands are raw, not bleeding, not blistered, but hardened, creased in patterns that mirror the curve of the sickle. Your back aches, your knees throb, your neck is stiff from bending, but there is no suffering in it. Only purpose, and in purpose there is peace. Daikichi works without pause. He never complains, never hurries. His motion is exact, patient. He teaches without speaking, and when he does speak, it is only to guide. A tilt of the blade, a correction of angle, a reminder to breathe between cuts. The boy has found his pace. He works beside you now, not behind. His rows are clean, his bundles neat. He smiles sometimes, not often, not broadly, but in that quiet, half-lidded way Daikichi does when something has been done properly. You see the pride in him, though he doesn't say the word. You don't say it either, but it's there, carried in the glance, the nod, the shared weight of a full bundle slung over a shoulder. On the fourth day, the wind rises again. It comes from the east, dry and sharp, rattling the stalks like bones and drawing whispers from the trees. The sky darkens early, and the headman calls for a halt to the work before sundown. Everyone returns to the village together, not in fear, but with caution. You've learned by now that the wind here speaks, and when it speaks, people listen. That evening, lanterns are lit early, not for celebration, but to mark the moment. The house fills with the smell of smoke and sweat, of warm rice and miso, of damp clothing hung too close to the fire. Daikichi says little. He sharpens tools. His wife kneads dough. The boy draws in the ashes with a stick, circles and fish and the characters he's begun to write on his own. Then a knock at the door, not rushed, measured. You open it. The messenger stands there. His robes are travel-worn again, but cleaner than before. His face is thinner, older. He carries a case on his back, bound in cords, and a second bundle under one arm. He bows low. Daikichi nods once and steps aside to let him in. The room changes, not with tension, but with gravity. The messenger unwraps the bundle, scrolls, yours, and more. He lays them on the floor, spreads them out like a garden in bloom. Then he speaks. Your words were read, he says, and remembered. You listen in silence as he explains. Some were skeptical. A few dismissed the writing, said it was too quiet, too ordinary, but others saw what you saw, not the form, the rhythm. The living breath of a world that had not disappeared, but had simply stopped asking to be seen. He hands you a small book, bound in cloth, roughly stitched. Your words are inside, printed, preserved, carried now to others who may never walk the ridges, never feel the water in their boots, never hear the frogs sing over the paddies. But they will read. And in reading, remember. The boy leans over your shoulder, mouth slightly open. Is that my name? He asks, pointing to a line. You nod. He grins. Daikichi does not speak for a long time, but eventually he lifts the book, flips to a page. He reads aloud, slowly, carefully. His voice cracks once, but not from weakness, from weight. Afterward, he sets the book down and bows, not to the messenger, to you. You bow in return. No one speaks for a while. The fire crackles, rain begins to fall outside, soft, steady, cool. The messenger sleeps near the door that night, and the boy places the book beside the fire, wrapped in cloth like something sacred. The harvest is not yet done, but something else has been gathered, something you did not sow, something you did not expect, and you understand now you did not come to write a story, you became one. The final day of harvest comes quietly. No one announces it, no bell is rung, no line is crossed in ceremony, but every hand in the field knows it. The last row stands like a small procession of monks, heads bowed, golden in the morning sun. The air is cool, not cold, the kind of weather that lets you forget the labor until your muscles remind you again, hours later. You arrive before sunrise. Daikichi is already there, standing at the edge of the field, the sickle in his hand lowered, the tip resting against his shin. He does not move until the light has broken over the eastern ridge. Then, and only then, he walks forward, bends and begins. The boy is beside you, eager, ready. This will be his last row too. You work in silence. Each stroke of the blade feels like the closing of a sentence. Each bundle, a paragraph completed. The field narrows as you move forward, and with it comes a stillness, an intimacy with the land you hadn't felt until now. It's no longer a task, it's a farewell. When the final stalk is cut, Daikichi straightens. He looks over the field. Bare now, only stubble and mud and the soft shimmer of water pooled in furrows. Then he does something unusual. He bows, deeply, to the field. You and the boy follow. There is no ritual name for this, no chant, no prescribed offering, only the gesture. Thanks. The bundles are carried home, one last time. Stacked in the drying racks, woven through the poles like sleeping bodies. The village is full of motion, but not urgency. The hardest work is done. Now the sun and air will finish what your hands began. The headman visits in the afternoon. He walks from house to house, speaking with the elders, checking the racks, offering simple nods of approval. When he reaches Daikichi's home, he stays longer. They speak beneath the eaves. The boy listens from the doorway, pretending to inspect a piece of rope. You sit with Daikichi's wife, sorting the herbs hung weeks ago. She moves more slowly now. Her hands are swollen from the dampness in the air, her fingers curled slightly, like petals around invisible seeds. But she works with care. They say it's the best harvest in 10 years, she says softly. You nod. She adds, but we'll only know after the rice is milled. There is always caution, even in joy. By dusk, the headman departs. He leaves behind 2 small packages, one of salt, the other of dried kelp. A gift, a sign of respect. Rare things, not easily acquired. Daikichi places them beside the family altar. He does not boast, only says, we did well. That night the village feasts. Not a grand celebration, not the clamour of the summer festival, just food, shared freely. Rice from the last of the previous year's stores, fish caught from the deep stream beyond the ridge, vegetables fermented and pickled to their peak. The children eat first, the elders next. You sit beside the boy, who is unusually quiet, chewing slowly, eyes fixed on the fire. You nudge him gently. Tired? He shakes his head, then says, I don't want it to end. You understand. The harvest was more than work. It was belonging. It was rhythm. It was a way of knowing your place in the breath of things. After the meal, stories are told, old ones. Of foxes who stole sandals and returned them filled with gold. Of cranes who wove their own feathers into cloth. Of warriors who became trees. Of lovers who whispered across rivers in the voice of birds. You listen. The fire crackles, the moon rises. Later you return home. The boy sleeps curled on his mat, the blanket half off, his arms stretched toward the corner where his writing pages are stacked. Daikichi sits outside on the step. You join him. The air is cold now. You say nothing for a long time. Then Daikichi speaks. You know the land now. You nod. He adds, and it knows you. There's a pause. Then he hands you something wrapped in cloth. You open it slowly. Inside, his sickle. Old, worn. The handle dark from years of sweat. The blade still sharp, still whole. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. You bow, lower than ever before. And when you rise, he's already looking out across the fields, where the moonlight lies like snow over every inch of ground you've come to call your own. Autumn deepens. The wind becomes more certain now. No longer testing the edges of the village, but pushing through, sweeping leaves down from the mountain paths in slow, rust-coloured waves. The air has turned crisp, not biting, not harsh, but touched by the silence of things preparing to rest. The harvest is over. The rice, once bound and dried under the sun, has been threshed. The grains have been separated, cleaned, and stored in earthen jars tucked deep into storerooms lined with straw. The rhythm of cutting is replaced with the rhythm of preservation. Of counting, of careful watching. What was once green is now golden. What once swayed now rests. The village becomes quieter, not idle, but inward. You wake later now, when the light already touches the floorboards. The boy is the first to rise, slipping outside each morning before the tea is brewed, collecting fallen branches and leaves for the fire. He moves with purpose. His voice, when he returns, is still soft from sleep. You've begun to write more. The words come slowly. They arrive like drifting leaves, one at a time, spiraling downward without urgency. You no longer chase meaning. You let it settle. You no longer write to remember what happened. You write to understand what still lives in you. One morning, the boy asks if you've written about the night birds. You pause. Then shake your head. He looks surprised. They only sing when it's about to frost, he says. Why? He shrugs. Maybe they want to warn us. That night, you stay awake. You sit outside, wrapped in Daikichi's old robe, listening. And they come. Not loudly, not all at once, but with voices that drift like reeds in wind, high, broken cries that echo softly between the houses. You try to write the sound, but the words fail, so you draw instead. Circles, lines, shadows in motion. In the days that follow, preparations begin again. Not for the fields, for winter. Daikichi leads the cutting of firewood. You help split logs in the early hours, the cold air tightening the skin on your hands, making the axe's handle feel harder, heavier. The rhythm is satisfying. Crack, pause, breath. Crack, pause, stack. Inside, the house changes. Thicker blankets are aired and beaten clean. Windows are patched with fresh paper. Daikichi's wife begins drying persimmons on cords stretched across the south-facing wall. The fruit turns slowly, from pale orange to a deeper rust, softening, wrinkling, sweetening as it surrenders to time. You are given new sandals, woven tighter, with thicker soles. The boy beams when you put them on. "Now you won't slip on the snow," he says. "Have you seen snow?" you ask. He shakes his head. "But my mother says it makes everything quiet." You believe her. The messenger returns, not with news, but with questions. He brings with him a new scroll, blank. He kneels beside you beneath the shrine tree and rolls it out. "This one is for you," he says. You ask what he means. He replies, "You've written the story of this place, now write the shape of your place in it." You look at the blank parchment. It doesn't frighten you. Not anymore. That evening you begin. You write your name, not as it once was, not the name tied to streets and cities and voices left behind, but the name the village has given you. The one the boy whispers when he dreams. The one Daikichi says when he asks you to pass the knife. The one carried in the wind now between the paddies over the river through the tall cedar woods. You do not know what the last page will hold, but you know how to begin. And this time, when the fox bell rings in the wind, you bow your head with a smile. Winter arrives like breath on glass, soft at first, then slowly settling in, layering everything with a delicate hush. The wind no longer stirs with curiosity. It moves with intent, wrapping itself around the eaves of every home, threading through gaps in the doors, whispering under the floorboards like an old friend returning after too long away. You wake one morning to silence. No birdsong, no footsteps, no ladle striking the well bucket. Just a stillness so complete it makes the crackling of the fire feel sacred. When you step outside, the world has changed. Snow has come in the night, not in a flurry, not in a storm. It has arrived like a blanket drawn over the village with reverence. Everything is muted. The fields, once vibrant with labour, now sleep under a smooth, unbroken sheet of white. The roofs sag gently beneath the weight. The trees stand bare, branches etched against the pale sky like brushstrokes frozen in time. The boy is the first to speak that day. He runs outside barefoot, shouting in laughter, hands outstretched. He presses his palms into the snow and lifts them, wide-eyed, examining the wet pattern left behind. He calls your name. You step forward. Your new sandals crunch over the frozen ground. He points toward the ridge. "Let's go see the fields." Daikichi watches from the doorway, arms folded, a faint smile at the edge of his mouth. He says nothing, but you know you're free to go. The two of you climb slowly. The snow is shallow, but thick enough to soften each footfall, to make the world feel distant. The air is clean, sharp in your nose, and each breath leaves a plume that vanishes as quickly as it forms. From the top of the ridge, the valley is a painting. The village below looks like it has exhaled fully for the first time in a year. Smoke rises from every home. There are no figures in the fields, no dogs barking in the lanes, no children shouting, just the long silence of rest, the promise of waiting. The boy crouches and begins shaping the snow into small forms. One is a fish, another a tiny rice bundle. Then he looks up. "Will it ever melt?" he asks. "Yes," you say, "everything does." "But it'll come again, right?" You nod. He seems satisfied. On the way back down, he walks ahead of you, stopping now and then to leave footprints in strange patterns. Circles, zigzags, winding spirals. "Like writing," he says, "but for the wind to read." When you return, Daikichi has already stoked the fire. The house is warm, filled with the scent of miso and radish. The dried persimmons, now deep and sweet, are being cut into slices for tea. His wife hums under her breath as she moves. An old lullaby, familiar by now, though you still don't know the words. Later, the messenger leaves, not forever, but for the season. You walk with him to the edge of the village, scrolls packed carefully in his satchel. He thanks you once again, though the thanks feels different now, not formal, not distant, more like the kind offered to a fellow traveller who helped carry the same weight. As he disappears into the woods, you stand there a long time, watching the path vanish behind him, watching the snow fall softly into his footprints. The days grow shorter. Inside the house, the boy writes more often. You find him scribbling with charcoal on scraps of bark, drawing pictures to match the stories Daikichi tells by the fire. He asks fewer questions now. Instead, he begins to answer them himself, imagining what lives in the river after dark, or what song the trees hum to the snow. Daikichi speaks more too. Not about war, not about harvests, but about the stars. about the ones who came before. About the time he found a wolf cub alone and carried it home, only to set it free the next morning. One night, as the fire dwindles, he asks if you'll stay through the spring. You answer without hesitation. Yes. He nods. Nothing more is said. The snow deepens, the world sleeps, and beneath it all, the roots hold strong. You wake each morning to the sound of water freezing and thawing. You write with steady hands by light that fades earlier and returns slower. You no longer wonder how long you've been here. You no longer count the seasons. Because in the quiet, you've learned something simple. You did not fail to last a day in feudal Japan. You stayed, you listened, you became part of the rhythm. And now when the wind moves across the paddies at night and the fox bell rings in the dark, it rings for you too.